One, one, one shot, now the future is yours. Go! I'm turning dreams into reality. In the lab with the formula and chemistry. Your memories spark and motivate and make the industry shake. We put the balls in the brakes. I'm talking one chance at best, yes. Painting pictures for the culture, keep the brushes fresh. Yeah, it's one shot, now the future is yours. Go!
To another episode of Smash Life Spotlight. My name is Justin Lamb. I am the founder of Smash Life, and we have a very special guest today. Really excited and honored to have him here. If you're in the dance community, you know who this guy is, but if you don't, you will. He is the pioneer in the dance scene, starting the infamous dance crew Kaba Modern. He's also the president of Culture Shock LA. He's part of the world famous Kinjaz, and he's a doctor on top of everything in occupational therapy. Please welcome Arnel Calvaria. Arnel, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Justin. I love everything that your brand promotes in terms of just empowerment and sharing stories and smashing life, right? Living your best life, growing into the best version of yourself, being a good human. So happy to be here.
Thank you. Yes, I'm so happy that we were able to connect, and you definitely are someone that, embodies the brand, and I'm really excited to share your story today. For those who may not know your background, would you mind maybe doing a quick introduction of yourself, where you're from, where you grew up?
Sure. So I grew up in Harbor City, a really small city in California. It's like right next to other bigger cities like Long Beach, Torrance, Carson, all of those cities. So it's kind of what we call the South Bay, which is about 15 minutes from south of LAX. So I grew up around in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, actually. I'm a little bit older. So I was really blessed to grow up during that golden age of hip hop, where ciphers and, graffiti art, MCing, turntable DJing was all in the parks, at the family parties, at the community centers. And if you wanted to learn the dance or any of the other art forms, you did it in your community. It wasn't in the studios. So really raw, very connected, very much in that thought process of just respect. Respecting your OGs, respecting the history of the culture, right? So I loved that growing up. And then when I got to UCI, in high school, I was dabbling in I had a crew with my high school friends, and we did talent competitions and things like that. I was really into community service. I was in this club called Key Club and all those things. But in college, I think it was the combination of all these different experiences. And so I joined the Filipino club called Kababayan, and they had a culture night every year. And so I asked, and kind of by accident ended up creating Kaba Modern. And that was 28 years ago, which is crazy, 1992. And we first were brought together to perform for this culture night, but we'll talk about it later. The journey definitely expanded and snowballed into things I couldn't even imagine it would, so it's been an amazing ride. And like you mentioned, I later on joined Culture Shock LA, which is my roots for outreach and education and empowerment. And of course, some of the dancers I mentored created Kinjaz. So I'm a member of Kinjaz under the direction of people I mentored who are amazing, so yeah.
It's phenomenal. I'm really excited to learn more about your story, and you've been in dance for quite a while. Was that always a part of your childhood, or how are you exposed to that? You said you were growing up during the age of, when hip hop first started, but, did you look up to certain people that kind of helped you get exposed to that type of music and this type of dance, or kind of what drew your interest there?
My first actually exposure to organized choreographic dance was actually through cultural dancing. So throughout my life, one of my aunts is a pretty renowned choreographer and teacher for Filipino cultural dances in Southern California. And so all the cousins had no choice. We were her youth troupe who did her choreography. And I loved it because I got to, hang out with my cousins, and I also got to understand a lot about my heritage, and also learn how to work with people, how to be a good team player, how to step up when called upon. And then I would say like the freedom aspect of dance, like freestyle exploration, just being a part of a community that was in the parks, at the parties, in the community. And that was the hip hop experience. Back then, like some of my inspirations were definitely my older cousins, because my older cousins were these really dope b-boys and poppers. Um, I always loved this icon. His name is Mr. Wiggles, and he's legendary. As an artist, an educator, and definitely an OG. I mean, Mr. Wiggles is like way up there for me. A b-boy crew I loved back in the day was Air Force One crew. I love them. Yeah, Rocksteady crew back in the day. And I love this group called Media Circus. They were these really dope Bay Area poppers and Electric Boogaloo. So those are just some of the people and a lot of these people you would see in like the movies back in the 80s and 90s, they're there, they're legends there. But in the community, they were like just total inspirations. So those were my first inspirations, and then later on, of course, new ones emerged, like even younger than me. So
that's so awesome. That's so awesome. Yeah, it seems like it always starts with a small community, and then as people get more exposed to it, then it starts to just grow naturally, right? Right. Which is like the exciting part about building a community in that aspect. And so let's talk a little bit after high school. I mean, you mentioned, you were in like a dance crew in high school, and then you go to UCI. Tell us a little bit more about that story of creating Cabo Modern. You mentioned your freshman year, you decided to start something. What was that story like? What was that background?
Well, I think what's interesting is that in high school, I was really, I was shy. I was active, like I was in organizations, but I always felt more comfortable in a supportive role. So like in my dance crew, I was more of the choreographer. I never really put myself in the front. I put my other crewmates in the front. And then in all the clubs, I felt more comfortable, like in a vice president, like something like supportive. But when I got to UCI, and joined the Filipino club, I had all these mentors, and I was the youngest now, and I'm also the oldest of 4 siblings. So I'm very much accustomed to, taking care of people younger than me. But now I had all these big brothers and sisters who were telling me they believed in me, and that's why I'm a big believer to never underestimate, the power of encouragement and empowerment, right? Believing in someone and telling them that you see something in them that they sometimes may not even see for themselves. Because with that support, that's how I've had the courage to even think of starting Cabo Modern, because what I wanted to do with Cabo Modern is, as a Filipino American, in California, like hip hop was just such a part of my upbringing. It's a part of my identity. I just felt so tied to it, as well as so many people I knew, all my relatives, and so many of my cousins. So that's why I wanted to put it into the culture night as kind of that Filipino American expression. And so Cabo Modern, it was funny because in the beginning there weren't any events. So we only performed at culture night, Filipino culture night, once a year. And then that didn't end up being enough. Like we wanted to create more and perform more. So we started performing at more events on campus. And then later on, like car show promoters and club promoters were like, ooh, we can make money off these guys if we invite them to perform, because people come to watch them. But those weren't always the ideal spaces to perform. There's not necessarily a big enough space. Sometimes you're performing in front of a crowd, and you don't even have enough time to do what you created. So my roommate actually wanted to create a fundraiser for his fraternity, and he was a part of Cabo Modern. And so he created an event called Vibe, and Vibe ended up being, it's to this day, like one of the most renowned, dance competitions. And then it kind of just was like a domino effect. All these dance competitions started popping up all over the West Coast, Body Rock, Prelude, Maxed Out, Battle Fest, like all these fusion, all these competitions started popping up. And that was really good for a certain amount of time because we had now more spaces. We were on stages that were safe. We had opportunities to share with our families and friends and be proud of ourselves. But the only drawback of it is if you create a lot of competitions, then you create a competitive community as well. And so when I joined Culture Shock LA, that's when I got into more some of the education events, like hip hop. It's called H4. Hip hop has history. Like I'm really bringing light to the history and heritage of all the art forms and bringing those OGs and pioneers I mentioned to this event to connect with the current generation. So you have that cross-pollination of thoughts and history and sharing and appreciation, right? Hip hop appreciation, so that we don't get into those problems of like appropriation, right? And disrespecting the art. So I just felt a need to kind of move in that direction when I got to Culture Shock LA. And during that time, of course, is when the dance TV show started like popping up also, that was like the late 2000s, like 2007. So it was a whole new era because one, we had social media. Social media started in 2005. So, we had Facebook and then later on, Instagram and YouTube, right? And then we had these dance TV shows that were emerging, first, So You Think You Can Dance, Dancing with the Stars. And then, of course, later on, America's Best Dance Group, which was kind of a game changer for our community, our California community, that is. So, for sure. So yeah, crazy journey.
Yeah, I mean, talk to me a little bit about, you mentioned you didn't have a Cabra Modern before you started at UCI. How did you approach that? How did you approach, your Filipino Student Association, like what was that process like? What was that thought process like? And take me through that journey.
I was just excited because I knew there were already a bunch of dope dancers on campus because I would session on my like balcony and I would see some girls sessioning down in their dorm. I'm like, oh, we should dance together. And we're all part of Kaba, So yeah, I just went to the president and I said, hey, you know what? I think, as Filipino Americans, it would be cool to shed light on the American experience as well, and hip hop is a big part of that, Black music and Black dance is the foundation of so many things that we love, So he actually was mocking me and just like, yeah, you should just do auditions. And, and I misunderstood him. So then I just ended up creating, that's why it's kind of by accident, but meant to be, And of course, I got full support from him and the board once it was started, And once it was at the culture night, it started like popping up at all these other culture nights at other universities, And then a lot of people get kind of like, why is it so Asian though, And I never really understood it, why is it so Asian until actually last year, 2020, opening my eyes to the fact that, when we think about systemic racism and we think about these university spaces, it's not as diverse as it should be. People weren't given equal opportunity. And so, yeah, a lot of Asian and a lot of white. And so a lot of these teams weren't as diverse. But I'm really encouraged right now by a lot of the work that's being done to make sure that we support equity, inclusion, and definitely cultural appreciation for these, for the Black community and all the other communities that like deserve the props that that they deserve. So
that's amazing.
So it's an exciting time, but it's crazy when it's exploding and you don't understand why. It's just, I think my hypothesis is why these teams emerged is because often, and not all, but in a lot of Asian heritage, when we think about love languages, you know what I mean? It's definitely acts of service, right? Our parents are acts of service. So we don't always grow up with like words of affirmation or, those kinds of needs that we have. But in these spaces, you receive a lot of that sense of belonging and affirmation that I think as Asian Americans, we crave, right? And so I feel like that's why also a lot of these these teams didn't call themselves like dance companies or crews. They called themselves dance families, because they were kind of like that family away from home, that chosen family that you had during your college or community experience. And so I think that was the great thing about it, is that it was a supportive space where people can really grow and kind of try new things and expand like who they are and find out who they are, and also make mistakes and grow from those mistakes as well.
For sure. No, I love that. I think, and especially what you were talking about, more recently about equity and inclusion. And I think it'll be interesting to see how that evolves in the dance community. I think taking different cultures and being able to, apply different types of moves from different cultures. And I think it is going to just expand and push the bounds of what dance is, and super excited to hear that and also see where it's going to be going in the future.
For sure. When you think about these different art forms, there's Vogue, there's b-boy, breaking, there's popping, there's locking, there's all these brilliant art forms, but they were created by specific people and specific culture. And I love the current thirst for knowledge of understanding it in a deeper way. Because I think that when we finally get back to in person, when it's safe to do so, I feel like our events should be more diverse, more inclusive. They should be like richer. Our dance and our movement and our art should be so much richer. And there's so much stories to tell too, because there's going to be so much healing that we're all going to be doing for a while, because this quarantine life and, it's been a lot. Last year was a lot. But it was such a great opportunity for us to also dig really deeper into ourselves too, and find ourselves and heal things that need to heal, and also figure out things that you want to grow in, and also figure out the things that you're proud of too. All those things together hopefully will help us emerge as better human beings. Yeah,
I think so. It's a lot of time for reflection and just to appreciate, what we had before, right? And then to be able to also push the bounds moving forward, which is the amazing part. You always have to look at the positives, right? I know that it is tough right now. You're not able to do workshops. You're not able to get together with your friends, and but at the same time, I think we will appreciate it so much more once things start to open up again.
Yeah, and people are also being creative of even though there is, of course, there is true Zoom fatigue, that I love that people are getting creative though and figuring out ways to connect in the meantime. There's been so many really dope educational and even dance movement programs that people just pivoted and created, looking at a unique need and being creative in how we deliver it. So yeah, even myself, we'll talk about it later. I created a program that I always wanted to create, but I never had time for it. But because, of the pandemic, all my travel gigs were shut down, I had time to birth it and give it wings. And that's been one of the most rewarding experiences for sure.
That's awesome. I'm excited to learn about that. And I have a similar story of why I created the brand. It's just we have all this time now, and to be able to do things that we just naturally didn't have time to do before. So I'm excited to learn about that. Talking about dance competitions, I know that you talked about Vibe and how that has progressed into what it is now. I mean, everybody in the dance community knows what Vibe is. From your eyes, you've seen it from the start to where it is now. What are your thoughts about this journey? I'd love to just learn about how you've seen the evolution and what you're most proud of about the dance community and these types of events that have been built based on that.
What I love about Vibe in particular is when my roommate first created it, one of the things that was super important was that every person that walks in the building felt valued. So all the judges had handwritten notes and a gift basket of appreciation. So they knew that them being there was important. And at the same time, we always have a judge orientation where we let the judges know that we're all here for the dancers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
to really give them like feedback that they can grow from, and that can help them achieve the goals that they're setting for themselves.
I love that.
And I like all those thoughtful things like, welcome posters in their room and a little like snack basket, like all those like thoughtful, like attention to detail that only dancers would know, because we know how we would want to be treated, and also just thinking about safety, having our tech rehearsals and making sure everyone's safe and they're seen and they're also captured, because we want them to have that video that they can kind of be proud of and they can share with their loved ones. I love all those things, because even though it's a competition and there's first, second, and third, the real gift of it all is the experience. Is that experience of sharing something with your teammates, sharing that with people in the audience, whether it's in the physical audience or later on the virtual audience. I think that's just so great. I'm so proud of that. And technology has just gone like expanded over the years, from before we're just, handwriting all of our notes. Now for Vibe, they're doing it through, saying it verbally, and then those audio files are given. So now there's no limits as to how much input you can give them, you can keep your eyes on them and just talk into this. And that's beyond me. I mean, that's the newer generations that have evolved it. But I love that it's built on the concept of serving, the dancers themselves. So, but I do hope, in the future we look at also diversity, you know what I mean? Like with the judges and like making sure that there's like, we're really paying attention to equity, more. Those are things that I know everyone's already been talking about and are working on. So that's going to be the next level up, is how do we take everything that we're doing well and then make it feel like, an equitable and inclusive space. And also like, how do we also honor, all the cultures that are a part of that artistry that's presented, so yeah. I'm excited. Those are things I've been advocating for a long time, and even though, last year sucked, I am so happy to see more people on board with advocating for these things. So
that's
so
amazing.
Great.
Yeah, no, that's super exciting. And it sounds like you guys have some really big goals, and yeah, it's all about including people. I think it's, and it's all about sharing the culture and knowing where it comes from, but also being able to see other people be involved and also push the bounds. I think that's what it's all about, and talking about competitions, obviously everybody knows about America's Best Dance Crew. I mean, that's the first time that I kind of saw it too myself. And I was like, whoa, this is dope, but tell me a little bit about kind of the evolution of, maybe you have a little bit of background on kind of how that show started. And I mean, obviously I did some research and yeah, just tell me a little bit about how ABDC basically has impacted the dance community, but also like what were the steps that kind of led to ABDC?
Well, there was an international dance competition called Hip Hop International, and the owners of Hip Hop International, Howard and Karen, they always had a goal of growing that event, because it's literally like the Olympics of hip hop, because there's like, over 50 countries there, and they're all representing their country at this international competition that usually is held in Las Vegas or Arizona. They always wanted to bring it to like ESPN or television, to kind of just shed light on what's been going on all around, all these years, because that competition has been around for a long time. So they had approached me because I guess MTV was interested in their idea, and kind of contacted me about, what crews would be good for this, for this television show. And once I found out, because at the time American Idol was really, really big, and they signed on Randy Jackson's name to have it like make sure it has credibility, right? Because Randy Jackson was so big from American Idol at the time. So once it was Randy Jackson's American Idol, America's Best Dance Crew, and then they got Mario Lopez to host it, I was like, oh shit, this is gonna be really huge.
Will Kava Modern fall back on the isolations they do so well? with Chris Brown's Wall to Wall. It's Cabo Modern.
And obviously by this time, our community had already been around for like so many years. So this is an opportunity to kind of shed light on what's been going on in California, you know? And also, to be honest, like at the time, you know, when you look at music videos and you look at, you know, entertainment in terms of like even Asian American representation, we were pretty invisible. You know, I mean, I don't even remember ever seeing, like, I think the first Asian person I saw was on Fame, like this 80s show, and she was mixed. You know, she had a little bit of Filipino in her. And then later on, Fly Girls, they had one Asian girl, you know. But other than that, we're really relegated to stereotypical roles like, you know, martial arts or the nerd role, right? And so I really thought this was like an opportunity to just be inclusive, you know, in the face of what dancers are on, you know, in multimedia, that when you think of dancer, you also think of Asians also, you know. And so I right away contacted, of course, my Cabo Modern, you know, directors at the time. I called Jabberwocky, I said, hey, you guys need to enter. And the goal, I called as many crews, and the goal was just to get one of us on the show, just one, you know. But the first season, we got Jabberwockies and Cabo Modern, who are friends, you know. Actually, one of the Jabberwockies was dating one of my Cabo Modern. And so it was so fun to have that journey of like, we're both made it on and we're both doing well. And Jabberwockies are like my age. So they're really like the role models of my dancers. So like, they were just like, man, if we survive another week, you know, this is just a blessing. So we treated like every episode like our last. And I think people could kind of, I feel like people could tell, you know, and I feel like a lot of people, we're like the underdogs, Cabo Modern, and I feel like a lot of people felt connected to us because they could tell, well, one, all of them are really humble. The dancers are role models and leaders of Cabo Modern, because by that time, our legacy has already like years and years and years of leaders and dancers. So I picked like the cream of the crop. They were just like really just good, 6 good human beings, you know, to be on the show. So yeah, we just treated every episode like it's going to be our last, you know, and they did such a great job and they stayed positive. And it's television too, so they're going to try to create rivalries, you know. But we never gave in to that. Like they would ask us sometimes, like, why do you think you're better than Jabberwockies? And we're like, I don't think we're better than Jabberwockies, you know. We think they're amazing and we're amazing in our own way, you know, like, so it was interesting to kind of experience that for the first time too, of like, you know, when it's television, it's like you have to really think about like how it's going to be shaped. And also the fact there's a lot of pressure on them because they're representing an entire community, you know.
These two groundbreaking crews, Jabberwockies and Cabo Modern, were a small percentage away from taking our top spot.
Not just Cabo Modern, but our California dance community, they wanted to represent it well. And I think they did such a great job. I was really proud of them all the way till the end. You know, I was always backstage, you know, while they were going on. And yeah, when that journey was over, I just had a feeling, I was like, I don't think this is the main thing. I think it's going to be what comes after is going to be the main thing.
It's like the start.
And I was right. Yeah, what'd you say?
It was like the start.
Yeah,
basically.
it was just almost like, hey, to the world, this is who we are. And there's a lot going on here in California, you know. There's a lot going on across the country, of course, but there was definitely a community here in California that was big already, you know, and it shed light. I think every season of that show, there was someone from California, you know what I mean? Obviously, because it's filmed here too. So that was really, really cool to see that rapid exposure, and Cabo Modern traveled for years after that. And it really was, that was the blessing of the experience, was getting to meet like, you know, other dancers from all over the world and promote positivity and, you know, hard work and appreciation for the art and the culture. You know, it's to be able to have the opportunity to travel and feel like anything you do makes a positive difference on someone else. It's just a huge, huge honor. And I saw all of those 6 dancers grow, and they're all like superstars in their own way, you know, just good human beings. Like, kicking butt and like in their journey and their path. All 6 of them. Just so proud of them. So so yeah, that was crazy. It was crazy to see your dancers on television, and it's crazy to travel somewhere else you haven't been in the country, and they know your name, like they know Cabo Modern, because you know what I mean. We up to that point, the only people that knew us were the people in the dance community and their families and friends, and then maybe some of the other countries who compete at Hip Hop International, but for the most part, like we weren't really like really known, but to be later known through the show, definitely is an honor.
For sure. Yeah, I have one of my best friends. He's a big dance fan. And he was really excited that I was connecting with you and just to see the life after America's Best Dance Crew and kind of like what that took off to. He was just like, it was such a big piece just to get that national recognition, even though, you guys have been doing it for so long. It's just that now you're kind of sharing it with the world, and to see how that has expanded to what it is today, it's just phenomenal. And yeah, just, from being an Asian American myself, like seeing, people that looked like me on TV and dancing and it was amazing. I was just like, that was a proud moment for, I think, a lot of us in terms of just being in that national spotlight and showing more than what people thought we could do. And it's been amazing. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is the main thing I learned from all of that is like, when you diversify the narrative, it shows people what is possible, right? And that's the importance of like diversity and inclusion, is when we do that in a lot of our spaces, we're showing all people of all different cultures and heritage and ethnicities and genders and ages and wherever you live in the world, that what is possible, and that's what like I think is important, is we should be doing everything we can to let people know that their dreams are possible.
For sure.
That they deserve a good life and that they have something special.
For sure. I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. And I think I love that you're on that mission, obviously with our brand too. We're just on that mission because I think there's a lot of times when, you don't necessarily see someone doing what you want to do. Right. And sometimes it can be scary, but at the same time, it's like, you got to kind of you have to have that mindset of, if this is a true passion and you're in it for the right purpose, I think, things will come out of it in ways that you just never thought of. Right. And I think it's not only like the dance competitions, but it's really the friendships and the relationships that you make. I think that's the most important. And now seeing you guys inspire the young, generation, and seeing, even like the TikTok movement of just choreographed dancing, right? It's just like, it's incredible. And you like, no one ever, I'm sure you didn't envision it to be like this, but you knew the power of the community that you were in, and you just kind of wanted to see that grow, which is phenomenal. And we're blessed to have, you and everybody in your community to be able to share that with us. For sure.
And it's cool to see around the world all the different dance communities like grow so much, whether that's Australia and New Zealand, or the Philippines, or Europe. I mean, it's just incredible. Mexico has an amazing dance community as well, and Canada's been growing like crazy as well. So it's fun to see people see what else is out there, and then kind of take that inspiration and then make their own like amazing brilliance too.
Yeah, for sure. I guess a quick question before you're going to move on here, but what was one of the places that you visited that you were just like genuinely just so surprised of, maybe like the community or the number of people, or maybe just exceeded your expectations of, of the culture in that particular country or city?
Well, actually, it's still in the United States, but it's like way out there. We went to Guam, and we had no idea that like they even knew about us or anything. And when we went there was the warmest reception you could imagine. It felt like the entire island like went to one place, And so performing for that community, and we always do like at that time, like times where we like also talk with the attendees, like a meet and greet, because that's where you really get to give an encouraging word and tell people to like really believe in themselves. And you know what I mean? Like shake someone's hand. I mean, yeah, the value of like shaking someone's hand and hugging, like we value that even more now, right?
Yeah.
That was always my favorite part, was after, like, and then they also took us on a boat tour, and we ate, you know, Chamorro food, and it's just like, it's just so unexpected. Like we knew we were gonna have fun because we were going somewhere we never been before, but yeah, to be able to perform for such a warm community, eat such yummy food, and then also explore the island on mopeds and, you know, go on a boat tour, it's like totally like beyond what we expected. We always talk about that's one of our most memorable, and we, you know, we've been to a lot of different countries, but that one was because of the warmth of the people and the impact you felt you made. That one is definitely probably one of the top experiences. And we went to Hawaii a bunch of time too, because the Hawaiian dance community also, or the Hawaiian community in general, there's just a vibe, you know, that they have that is just so special, you know, and so warm, and yeah, it was always a nice reset for us too, to be able to like go hiking, eat some good food, be around, you know, our peoples that we, you know, we became friends with after, you know, a couple of times of heading out there. So yeah, there's so many, but those two are the ones that, those two communities are like, were really standouts to us.
For sure. Yeah, there's always that, you know, one trip or two, or even a specific community where it just kind of, and it's not that other communities don't do the same. It's just kind of that one like special moment where you're like, wow, this is more than what I've ever expected. And you just start to appreciate that like more and more. And kind of transitioning now, I know we've been talking a lot about, you know, the dance community. You're also a doctor in occupational therapy. You know, talk me through your journey of, you know, finding this profession, and also balancing, you know, you're throwing all these events and teaching, like balancing dance with school. Like, tell me a little bit more about kind of your journey to becoming a doctor.
Well, it's interesting because this is something that like I love talking about, because I really am a big believer that none of us are meant to do just one thing. But we're thrust into culturally, like, you must be this profession, right? You must be a doctor, or an engineer, or a lawyer. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like these are the paths, you know? But for me, as I journeyed through life, I think we're really all just a brilliant mosaic of many extraordinary parts. And the more we understand the things that are fulfilling to us, that's how we can make really good choices for the careers, you know, that we choose. And so for me, it's never been one. I definitely was influenced in the health profession because all the people on my mom's side are all health professionals, and I'm the firstborn. So I was kind of influenced, but I also loved, in my mind, I always like imagined how rewarding it would be to work with patients, always. So it was also an innate desire. I just had a feeling that I probably wasn't going to be like a surgeon or pediatrician. I went on a medical mission actually to the Philippines while I was going to UCI. And we actually assisted with cataract surgeries, tumor resections, delivering babies. You know, it was really, really crazy to see all these things. And I wasn't like, I wasn't grossed out about anything. I was definitely like, wow, this is a cool experience, but it definitely felt so technical. Like I almost wasn't connecting with a human anymore. And I could tell it just wasn't my thing, because what I enjoyed more was when my shift would be like doing the passing out the medications or checking out how they're doing after surgery. And I realized I'm more like into like the recovery and therapeutic process afterwards, you know what I mean? Versus the technical or just checking on them quickly, like a, you know, like a factory, you know? And so when I came back from the medical mission, I just started volunteering at a hospital because I was like, I need to find out where I'm going. I'm already also a junior, like I need to figure out. And I also knew at UCI, to be super, super transparent and honest, like out the gates, when I started at UCI, I was doing well academically. But somehow when I started getting into like biochem, organic chem, things that to me it was hard to translate that to the human body. I just wasn't doing it. I wasn't as interested. I wasn't trying. I was way more interested in Kaba modern rehearsals, and Kaba and cultural dances. I wasn't engaged, and I could tell I was drifting away. But then I saw the physical therapist on a rehab unit that I volunteered at, and I realized, I think I might be a physical therapist, And then I just ended up getting a physical therapy aide job at a clinic. And then I, finished, graduated, and I moved back home with my parents for a little bit. And when there was an opening at Children's Hospital LA on the rehab unit for an OT PT aide position. And I was like, wow, I can get experience and get paid. So I'm going to do this, and I interviewed and and there were 2 openings. So there was the PT OT aide. If it was physical therapy emphasis, you work from Tuesday through Saturday. And then there's the PT/OT emphasis, because you float to both, but you go to OT more, works Monday through Friday. I was like, I don't want to work Saturday. So I said, let me try this OT one. And also at the clinic I worked at, my supervisor said, you might really want to think about occupational therapy because there's something about your personality that I think I could see you doing occupational therapy, because occupational therapy within its like study culture, it's comprised of physiology, psychology, and sociology. And I love psychology and sociology a lot, So when I worked at Children's Hospital, I figured out that it was occupational therapy that was really me. And so that's why when people ask me, like, how do you find your career? I'm like, there's actually, the most important thing is not to force it, like not to rush into a career, because you're expected to, because you know yourself what you're genuinely interested in, and your life is worth it, taking the time to explore and find the thing that you really, really love, Yes. And so if I didn't just explore, like if I went to my expected route right out of college, I probably would have not be as healthy or happy as I am today, because when I found occupational therapy after bouncing around and almost bumping into it by accident because I applied for this job, I wouldn't have found a career that I truly love. Like, I love working in this career like every day of my life, and I will retire in this career because I love it that much. So it was worth it. I was a later when I went to my master's, and then I ended up actually being the graduate of the first doctorate program. I was the first year of the doctorate program at USC. I ended up graduating with that. I went all the way through the doctorate because that's how much I love this field. And I know that one day I want to teach and then, encourage other future occupational therapists as well. So awesome. That's the kind of my road. I kind of bumped into it, and you trust your gut making choices, and sometimes you make choices for other decisions, but it's still leading you in that right direction. Mm-hmm. And it's very much so that concept that life is about making things happen and letting things happen, right? So there's certain choices and risks you should take to kind of just see what happens. And then there's also like there's value in trusting God or the universe, whatever you believe in, that things are also going to unfold the way they're supposed to be, So yeah, I always tell people, find the right combination, because dance and occupational therapy, for me, the combination of that makes my life like full and happy in terms of career,
For sure. No, that's amazing. That's amazing. And I think that that's part of the education that I'm trying to provide to a lot of people that are, struggling. And, you always have this idea of like what you want to be, but sometimes you may find out that might not be something that's actually on your journey, right? You're like, oh, this is actually not that interesting to me, but not kind of forcing that, but also being able to identify like, oh, maybe it's something else. And I always think, as long as you have purpose to doing something, right? Like, I want to learn this skill and I want to try this. And if you do that, you'll get some experience and you'll start to realize, is this something that I really want to do, or is that something I don't want to do, right? And I can really resonate with your journey, because I jumped around from different parts of the technology sector. I was like, I need to find something that I really love to do, like, or else I'm not going to be good at it. I think like, and that's something that is important because, we have one life to live, and it's like, how do you want to live it? Do you want to just go through the motions, or do you really want to find something? And sometimes it can be challenging to, change careers after you've been doing something for a little bit of time. But I think that as long as you have that intention of really finding happiness, you'll start to find success in maybe, you'll find success in other ways, right? I think it's not always about money. It's about, what are you doing and what are you contributing to, your coworkers or the community or whatever you are looking at. There's more to it than just, that money aspect. And I think that that's really important to kind of share with people as well.
Absolutely. 120%.
Yeah, when you were speaking about that, I was like, man, this is speaking to my heart, because I felt that journey in my career too. And it's important that we share that and show people that it's okay that one idea can transition to another idea.
I mean, so much of our waking hours are working, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we deserve, as human beings who want to thrive, to take the time to figure that out. And also sometimes, we find a path and that career was good for us for this chapter of our lives. And then we can feel our heart drifting, our attention drifting. It's also never too late to start over and find a new path, So I always just tell people, like, just always like check in with yourself and be comfortable with being a lifelong learner and always exploring and keeping your mind open, because you never know where it's going to take you.
Yeah. You'll never know, and there's opportunities that will pop up left and right, and if you can identify it and if you think that you're going to like that, to give it a try. I think it's always about trial and error too, right? And seeing what's really going to be for you. But no, thank you so much for sharing that. I think that was a really important piece to share with our listeners, is just that, your journey is going to be different than when you expect it to be. And like you said, you kind of have to got to go with the flow and trust your journey, and you'll find your way. I think that that's important. Let's talk about Kinjaz for a little bit. Obviously they're the top of the top in terms of the dance community right now. I mean, they have a lot of exposure. What is your involvement with Kinjaz? What are some of the goals that Kinjaz have?
So the two founders of Kinjaz are Mike Song, who is one of the dancers that was on ABDC with Cabo Modern. He was a former director of Cabo Modern. And then Anthony Lee, who I've known in the community as well. And then I ended up working with him through Culture Shock LA, right? So they created Kinjaz actually 11 years ago. So right before the pandemic last year, we celebrated our 10-year anniversary, and then literally got shut down like right after, 2 months after. But yeah, the journey of Kinjaz has also been wild. Because Kinjaz really is like a brotherhood of dancers who already we all like directed different teams, and we're also different generations of leaders. But we always all had like respect and reverence for each other, in the community. And some of us had worked together on like other projects also. So when Mike and Anthony kind of created it, in the beginning, it was just like really crazy. It was like a fraternity almost, like just doing these wild performances, that definitely were memorable. Not always appropriate, but definitely memorable. And the brotherhood was just so strong, though. Like that sense of support and creativity was just so great. So it was definitely about dance, but it's also about so much more. It's about like growing through life together and having that support, and also like really encouraging each other to just not have the courage to just level it up. If you have a crazy idea, let's just try it, And so I think there just have been some game changer people when they joined Kinjaz that just changed everything. And one of the game changers is this guy named John Shi. And he runs his own media company called Vibrancy. And he is a media trailblazer, can do everything, and one of the most humble, kind good souls I've ever met, for sure. So when he came into the picture, it kind of changed us, because not only did we have these dope choreographers and dancers and creatives, now we had the media aspect. And when you have the media and the art together, and they're both at this really high level, and they also have really very similar work ethic and also similar integrity, it was just so like it fit just so seamlessly. And so around that time where we were like now starting to create like video content and just having such the time of our lives, just being creative, was when the TV show started ramping up again, because now you had World of Dance. And then ABDC came back for like this special Battle of the Champions, and they were looking for wild cards, and they approached us, you know, because they knew us in the community. So I think those television shows were wild rides, but we saw them differently this time. Like when you go on these shows, you have to understand that, like, you know, part of it is a competition, and part of it is, you know, also reality television that's out of your control, right? So controlling the outcome or going for a particular outcome is never the goal when you go on these shows. What you're going for is to try to do your best, and then when you have your visibility, use it to promote the things that you want to create in the world. You know what I mean? Yeah. So this time around, you know, with Cabo Modern, we're like, we got to try our best and just last as long as possible and rep our community and inspire, you know. On these shows, we're like, we're going to do all that, but every episode we're going to design our routine to promote something that we have, whether it's our clothing line or our studio, you know what I mean? We're using it as marketing at this point, you know, because we already know better that you can try your best, and at the end, you're not going to get it if the network, you know, has a different vision, you know. So so both were a lot of work, but being more seasoned and understanding that, like, made both a success for us, you know. And so yeah, so we opened up our dojo, our Kinjaz dojo, and then we also made partners with this studio in China, Sinostage, who are like the top dogs in China, and they're just good people that we love, you know. So we started opening up studios in China, you know, and it was like really crazy, and everything was really thriving all the way up through to 2019. And then of course the pandemic hits, and you can't be in person, and that was really like, wow. You know, like, and I'm not, you know, I'm definitely, you know, considered like a big brother, and I'm a member, you know, like I'm more involved in like the outreach and education stuff parts of Kinjaz. That's a part that I'm trying to grow within Kinjaz, and it's definitely a work in progress still. But so it was kind of a heartbreaking for the owners of Kinjaz, you know, which is like John Shi, the guy I mentioned, Mike Song, Anthony, this other guy, Lee J, who's also from Cabo Modern before, to kind of see, and then Ben is actually the one he was on Jabberwockies, but dating a Cabo Modern girl at the time. But he was from Cabo Modern also, and he's one of the 5 main directors as well. And they're just an amazing, you know, group of leaders. But last year's a struggle for Kinjaz, you know, like, you know, we definitely have so many blessings from the years before, and all the collaborations we've been made, even like, you know, K-pop stars and stars abroad that we work with, we continue to work with. But all those studios, you know, had to be closed in China, and when you're dealing with investors and, you know, and then people's livelihoods, like hundreds of people were working for all the different studios, you know, like, it's heartbreaking, you know. We had to close our dojo last year also, which was tough. And we had just opened this big space with Sinostage called The Complex, and that's also a struggle too. So it's like, so we definitely felt the brunt of last year. And that's just on top of even just personal struggles that, you know, individual Kinjaz had been going through because the pandemic hit so many families, you know. But the creativity is still there, and we're still together, you know. And even though our physical spaces have closed, like when it opens up again, you know, we'll be ready to like head out there and build again. Right now, it's like we're just still closing all the lawsuits and the contracts and healing from last year. But I'm excited for where we're going, because there's definitely been a lot of meetings and development in the area of, you know, not artistic creativity for sure that we're going to do with media and dance, but also like how we're going to show up in terms of like advocacy too. And, how are we going to promote inclusion through everything we do and education and show up as good human beings. So a lot of right now is dedicating time to learning about our own heritage more, so we can really build on those concepts of decolonizing ourselves,
Yeah.
and then growing those ideas of now, how do we use our privilege to serve people even in a more inclusive way and a more powerful way with the gifts that we have. So it's really, really exciting. And we also been going to the food industry as well, because we have some friends who are like killing it in the food industry that we've known from way back from Cabo Modern days, Alex Cotreview out of Michael Sam. Yeah. So Kinjabang Noodles is the beginning, but there's going to be more. And that's kind of where Kinjas is going to be. It's going to be in the dance world, but it'll also be connected to fashion with our clothing line. It'll also be connected to food, through our food partners. And it probably will also be diving into music as well, because there are some people interested in music in Kinja. So it's going to be a hub for a lot of different branches. But we definitely are doing a lot of inner work right now. And so that's why we kind of a little bit, like we have a few videos we post, but we're kind of radio silent in a way, because we're really trying to learn a lot more to see how we can more powerfully show up when things open up, in the most conscious and impactful and also creative way.
For sure. No, that's super exciting. And yeah, while it does hurt to see a lot of jobs being lost and the circumstances that we're in right now, it sounds like it has also allowed you guys to kind of mentally take yourself to another place where you can now start to think about other ways to expand the brand and expand kind of the mission of what Kinjas is going after. And so that's super exciting to hear. And we're looking forward to it, for all the new stuff that you guys are pushing out, and really excited about that. But thank you for sharing. And then in terms of community, you've been doing a lot for the community. Tell me a little bit more about Culture Shock LA. I think that a lot of, what part of this process is and this interview is about also sharing resources. When people hear about your story, we're gonna link people to Culture Shock. We want people to find resources if they want to explore more. But tell me a little bit more about that from your end.
So yeah, Culture Shock's been around for 28 years. It was actually created by this woman, Angie Bunch, and 28 years ago, a year after Cabo Modern was created, actually. And it's actually a 501c nonprofit organization that uses music and dance to provide education and empowerment to at-risk youth. And so Culture Shock LA, like we have all these after school and in-school programs that we do for at-risk youth, all grant funded and all funded through actually the DEA also, where we get to, when art programs are cut, we can go in and provide these dance programs that hopefully will, promote social skills, health, advocacy, and just, really empowering them to believe in themselves and have, not lose hope of their, their dreams and everything that they aspire to, and have that real mentorship too. So I really love Culture Shock, and Culture Shock again is the host of H4 every year, which is like a big dance education summit. And I'm really all about those things. When we think about what happened last year, organizations like Culture Shock LA are the ones that have been in the work for a while, that are really moving towards inclusion, equity, liberation, for all people. I mean, that's our thing, for all people. Yeah. That's our that's kind of like our slogan, because we believe in building respect, dignity. Self-worth, dignity, and respect for all people. And we have our youth troops. So we have Mini Shock, that's 8 and under, and then Mighty Shock, who's the next one up to 12, and then our teenage Future Shock, and then Culture Shock LA are the adult mentors. And so it's cool. There's several cities in the United States, a couple in Canada, and all joined together on this mission. Yeah, that
That's amazing.
to really serve and think beyond yourself. And so many dope dancers have come through Culture Shock LA that are out in the community also doing their own things, like, and really doing such great outreach work, and again, like Mike and Anthony, from Kinjaz are also from Culture Shock, right? So I just like, that's always going to be my home, because I believe in every fiber of what it stands for, but next year, again, will be a building year, as it is for everyone else, of how we show up powerfully, what are new events we can create that meet the needs of our community. And yeah, I'm the board president. So first I ran Culture Shock LA, and then Angie Bunch kept pulling me up. So now I'm the international board president to support all the directors of all the cities.
That's amazing.
Which can be a daunting task at times, but it's also a tremendous honor. So that's kind of like my volunteer work, because as a board, as you know, when you're like on the board of directors, you're volunteering your time.
Yeah.
But I gladly volunteer my time because I believe in everything that Culture Shock stands for. So that's like my community outreach volunteer work,
Yes. That's amazing. And in terms of maybe kind of coming back to that, projects that you've been working on during quarantine, I'd love to hear, what have you been up to, now that you've, obviously you have more time on your hands, you're not teaching workshops and traveling the world, but, what have you been up to?
Yeah, I mean, one of the most immediate things when everything closed down, it's like, oh, I'm not going to go to these certain international events anymore this year. So I was like, but I feel like now more than ever with the pandemic, I want to connect with these international leaders and see them even more. So I always had this program called Leadership Tools for the Dance Leader, which it focuses on 5 different things. So mission statement and identity, effective communication, ideas for managing group dynamics well, Roots Before Branches is like my history. So I go through the timeline of different art forms so they understand history and heritage of a lot of these dance art forms. And then I always end it with self-care, because that's like the never ending journey of, getting better at self-care, right?
Yeah.
So you have longevity, you have good health, and you can show up better for people because you think your well isn't dry. So I decided to just launch it with the encouragement of my boyfriend, Dustin. Like, I decided, you know what, I have this time now. So let's just and the curriculum was already there. I just had to make some tweaks. And then I actually weaved in a lot of social justice learning that I had been learning even on a deeper level, even weaving it more, because I feel like that's my way of contributing. Because I remember that time, I'm pretty sure you can relate, last May, June, I was just, first of all, we were all just, everything that was going on was just heartbreaking. You know what I mean? Seeing George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and all of these atrocities happening was just, wow, what can I do? You feel overwhelmed. And then I feel like this program was my way of taking all of that and putting it somewhere to benefit. And I ended up, all through last year, I ran a couple of cohorts of this program, and I ended up serving 167 leaders.
Wow.
From all across the globe, from Philippines, Taiwan, Singapore, Germany, New Zealand, Australia, Brazil, Canada, Mexico, Trinidad, Tobago, and then of course, even in the US, all the way out to Guam and Hawaii. So all these different leaders, having the melting pot of these ideas, and it also being a safe space where everyone can feel like they can just share what's going on in their community was very powerful. And so I felt like, as some of the things I've been doing were closed for last year, it did open up this program that is ending up being, one of the most fulfilling projects I've ever created in my entire dance career. Because I think that's what's missing, is there's not enough support for the leaders. There's a lot of dance, tutorials and dance content, Steezy's doing a good job, Building Block, all these amazing online experiences, and even individuals like Shauna Evaristo, Sora, all these really, really cool instructors, offering really great things, Andy J. But nothing for leaders. Yeah, nothing for leadership. So yeah, this is my niche, and I love it. And I'm actually running a cohort right now that I'm in the middle of one right now. And yeah, I think I'll be doing it even when we are in person. I'll probably be teaching this course at least a couple of times a year to allow that international connection. So where, plane ticket and resources like that isn't a barrier anymore. People can connect, through this program. So
Love that.
super excited about it, and I love it.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited for you. I think it is important to provide those types of support to leaders who are teaching to the future generations, and then to be able to give them a platform to connect with one another and understand, maybe different struggles or different challenges, and how do we overcome that as a group. And it just seems like a great program that I'm looking forward to learning more about and seeing what arises from that, for sure. Yeah, and just a couple of last general questions for you. And I really appreciate you taking this time to chat with me. It's been awesome to learn about your journey and all the work that you've done. For you, like, how do you define success?
I think success for me personally is fulfilling your life's purpose in a way that positively impacts as many people as possible, including yourself.
Yes.
So where you're connecting to who you are, what makes you extraordinary, and so that you're growing into the best human you can be. And then you're sharing whatever and emitting that out in the world in a meaningful way that impacts people's lives. Yeah. I just have a lot of appreciation for mentors and people who help me see things that I didn't even think were possible for myself and help me on my journey. And so I'm just going to spend the rest of my life paying it forward as well to feel like I'm living up to that purpose that I think is a part of what I was born to do,
Yes. I love that. You've have impacted the dance community so largely. For you, what do you want people to remember about your legacy?
Oh, that's so, yeah, my legacy. I think I really want people, I think it's what I just said in terms of success, that I hope people will remember me as one, a good human, a compassionate, loving, good human, that dedicated his life to making a positive difference in the world.
For sure.
Yeah. That's probably how I would, more than any title or more than anything, that I used whatever resources and talents I have to make this world better, for the future generations.
Well, you definitely are doing that. And so, yeah, it's definitely, I love that answer. And you are taking that into action, and you've already done so much, and you're doing more, which is amazing. So it's good to see.
Well, can I mention one more thing? I totally forgot.
Sure, of course.
Another thing that I'm going to do that I was going to launch this year, but I'm going to try to do it this year or next year whenever we're in person is I'm also a big believer in congruency. So taking different parts of your career and making it come together in a meaningful way to meet a unique need. And I think I might have mentioned this when I was in Clubhouse, actually, when we met, right?
Yeah.
I want to do a dance. So through Culture Shock LA, I did an after-school dance therapy program for kids with special needs. A lot of the kids had autism, and these kids were kids who are being turned away from dance studios because they don't know how to handle them, or they're scared of these kids. And these are like beautiful kids that deserve the opportunity to express themselves. So, so through Culture Shock, a grant, we offered it at one of my school sites that I work at. And it was like the most amazing thing to see these kids with, different kinds of abilities really have their chance to shine, and to also see their parents watch them perform and know they achieved this goal through this program of learning this routine and learning about their bodies and developing social skills. And so, yeah, my next dream, this leadership course was definitely one dream, but the other one is I want to come to fruition as a dance camp for kids, a dance therapy camp for kids with special needs, where during the summer when they're off from school, they could be part of this dance program that, that can hopefully unlock something in them and give them a place to express themselves and grow. you know. So
I love that. I love that. Actually, it was funny. I was going to mention this right after your conversation, but I have seen that directly impact someone in my life. Where shout out to Andrew Sarivong. He has autism, and he's been dancing for a really long time, since he was a young kid, and he's actually going to School of the Arts here in San Francisco, and still dancing. And to be able to see that impact that dance has, how that has affected him, and helped his growth in terms of not only like movement, but just to be able to learn in different ways and express themselves. It's amazing to see. And he's also a huge fan of Kaba Modern and Kinjaz. I told him I would shout him out. But
I'm gonna get him. Well, one, I want to connect with him because anyone that's living with autism, it's just they have a certain lens, and so I would love to like just connect with him and see what would he want to see in a program like mine, in serving kids, and I want to give him, definitely, if he's like someone positive, I want to give him some Kinjaz gear for sure.
Thank
sure.
you.
So yeah, thank you.
No, that's amazing. I love what you're doing, and as I mentioned, it's just great to see the impact that you've made, across the world, and people and kids of different situations, and just how they can express themselves in dance, but not only in dance, but you guys are also setting like a foundation for them to express themselves in other ways, right? And I think like you guys are, that's the most important part, right? Is you're trying to develop them to be great human beings, and I think that you're using the channel through dance, but in the end, you're teaching them life lessons that they can take on, in life, and encourage them to go after certain dreams, like whatever dreams they have, and you'll be there and supporting them. I think that in itself is what, for me at least, that's what I take from this interview, is the fact that you guys are doing that, and that's what I'm most proud of what you guys are building. So it's amazing, and I want to say that I'm appreciative to you and everybody in the dance community for doing that, because it's affected me personally, and people in my life, and I can just see how it's affecting everybody else in the world. So thank you,
brother. I appreciate that. Really.
For sure. One thing that I wanted to ask you, one of the last few questions, is kind of like, what is your take on TikTok? I mean, like the world has become, everybody has become a choreographer or a dancer nowadays. But what is your take on it now that you see it, on social media even more so now? What are your thoughts?
I mean, it's definitely a particular algorithm. You know what I mean? Like there's definitely like how you become successful in TikTok is definitely a particular algorithm. I think, well, one thing I think is impressive is like all the social justice things that the youth, the current generation have done through TikTok is pretty crazy, right? Like before that, I was like, it's fun. I'm not going to participate. It's just too much work. I'm already handling Instagram, and that's a lot, But much respect to see young generation use it in a way that can like make such a big difference, like with the elections last year, right? I think it's definitely entertainment. Like, when I see it, like they're mostly not the best dancers all the time, but there's something entertaining about them or intriguing, and that has value too, right? Like, so I also like the concept of thinking like beyond perfection, that everyone can be a star in their own way. There's space, there's space for where dancers are dancers, and there's a technique, and it's dope. And there's space also for just entertainment, where people are expressing themselves, whether they have the skills or not, but that has value too. So I like that. And whether I participate in it or not is another thing, but do I, encourage it? Yeah, absolutely. You know what I mean? If that's your thing, then go for it. But it's true though, a lot of them, when I see them, I'm like, ooh, like, that's definitely movement, but not necessarily. And then of course there's some dope ones where I'm like, wow, that took a lot of skill to put that in a few seconds to get that much across. And it's also fun, like when you see some of these trends, because a particular edit of a song and they do a sequence and people have their variations. That's fun to watch, But do I have the energy for that? No. I'm not gonna participate. I'm gonna just like enjoy it and support, other people enjoying it.
So true, so true, so true. Yeah, I mean, I think this has been awesome. I really appreciate your contribution to the world, and obviously being on here and just sharing the story and what you are working on. I really appreciate it, and I definitely want to stay in touch, and I want to any way that I can support. Obviously, we're a brand that is trying to empower people to go after their dreams, and you have very similar initiatives across the different groups and organizations that you're working with. I'd love to figure out a way where we can collaborate and give back to the community, because I think that that's the main thing, right? Exploring and finding yourself, but also being able to share that knowledge with people who are maybe struggling in that aspect, and seeing their success, and that's what I love to see, people that are like, hey, I went after my dream, and look, what came out of it. It's like, it's amazing to see. And, I just really appreciate everything that you've shared with us today. And any last words from your end, any last words or advice for any future dancers that want to be on Kinjaz, or anything you want to share?
I just want to say that, again, everyone is born with an extraordinary purpose and many extraordinary talents and gifts. So you just owe it to yourself to explore, I really recommend getting mentors in your life, and if you have a mentor, be a good mentee, be appreciative, show respect, give them props when they do. I have mentors that have changed my life, and I'm a mentor to other people as well. So yeah, just live your best life, be the best human you can be, and know that your place in this world matters. So go for it and smash life, right?
For sure. Yeah, we have one life to live. You might as well go after what you want and be happy with it. So yeah, Arnel, well, I appreciate it. I hope you stay safe during this time, and as we kind of get things back to normal, I'd love to meet up in the future, and can reconnect and see what you're up to. I'm really excited.
I'm in the Bay Area often, so yeah.
Okay. I'm in LA. I go to LA to visit some friends, but yeah, we'll definitely set up some time to connect once this is all over. But stay safe out there, and thank you so much again for your time.
Yeah, you too, brother.
Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed the interview, make sure to click the subscribe button and follow us on our social media.